60-mile-an-hour road, come on! I actually persuaded my beautiful girlfriend to take this car for a spin. That was a little bit nervous.
Check out this damage.
And we've got a blown fuse.
Let's get the soldering iron out and do a permanent bodge. Snowing again. Dodgy wiring job.
Talk about this mess. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me on the way to work in my favourite car, Esther the ST170 powered Mk1 Escort. This is actually the first day I've been back to work since I injured my heel, which still hurts, but it's definitely well on the way to being fully healed up. 60-mile-an-hour road, come on! Now I've been daily in this car for the last few days. You would have seen in the last video that I took it to Chelsea Cruise, and yesterday I actually took it up to visit my parents in Northampton, and there has been a couple of little niggles that I've discovered, and I'm hoping to have a look at those little niggles this week. I'm planning to go round to the garage before work a couple of times to spend some more time on this car. I'm actually going to take this car back to its garage on my break today and pick up Maud, my Model Mk2 Escort, and carry on using her for the rest of the week. Now yesterday, before I went to my parents, I actually persuaded my beautiful girlfriend Kat to take this car for a spin for the first time. So I'm going to put that clip in now, and apologies, I actually had the phone upright when I was filming it, so it's in portrait instead of landscape. Yeah, go slower than that, the speed bumps. But no, that was alright. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it, with the indicator on the right hand side?
Yeah.
It drives alright though, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's just
you wait till you drive Maud. Maud is junk compared to this, honestly. If you've got motor in front of you, change down again. Now boot it. Harder. Just give it a bit off the lines. That's it. Right, you're spinning there. Feel that? It's fine, just make sure you aim it. It's got a standard different anyway, so. Right, now get it straight, put the accelerator all the way down. One, more. Really wheeled up, and then boot it. Drop a gear. Drop a gear again. Now boot it. Right. That's alright. You wanted to see Kat drive one of my old bangers. Been trying to persuade her for ages. Although Kat was a little bit nervous driving this car yesterday, she did seem to enjoy herself. I need to persuade her to have a go in Maud next so she can compare the two, because she is junk compared to this car. But eventually I'd like to try and persuade Kat to do at least a donut in Maud. Might have to be at a legal drift day though, she's not really immature enough to be doing it on the street or in a car park. Anyway, as I mentioned, I'm going to be getting myself round the garage before work at some point this week, so I'll continue this video then. Hello, right, so a few days have passed and I'm round the garage before work. I was actually hoping to come round here yesterday, but it was snowing, which is really unusual for this time of year. Anyway, Maud, my Maud Mk1 Escort, who is back on daily duties, is here with me, and I've got Esther, my ST170 powered Mk1 Escort, out the garage. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I've got a couple of little niggles to deal with on Esther, and the first one is actually something that loads of you mentioned in the comments of the last video. I actually only noticed it when I was editing the last video. I'm of course talking about the passenger side rear tail light, which isn't working. Just flick the lights on, which is this switch on my car. And yeah, we've got the driver's side one on, but nothing on the passenger side. Now it's either going to be an earth issue or a blown bulb. The bulbs on a Mk1 are really easy to change. Just literally pull this out, twist the bulb out. The bulb actually looks good. Hang on a minute. The next thing I was going to be looking at is the passenger side light at the front is also not working. And I think the passenger side tail light and the passenger side front side light are on the same fuse. And we've got a blown fuse. And the fuses should have been the first thing I checked. Turn the lights back off. Extract the dud fuse, which is quite fiddly with fat fingers like mine. Now I still haven't been able to find my huge bag of brand new fuses. I found this old crusty used but not broken one. Flip the lights back on. We have light. Tail light is now working, and if we come around the front, we've now got both of the LED ring side lights working. Continuing on with the wiring theme, I'm now going to talk about something that I mentioned in the last video, and that is the intermittent fault with the battery light. Now, as you would have seen in the last video, that issue occurred when we were on the way to Chelsea, and the morning after that, just before Kat took Esther for a spin, I was messing around with the wiring for that battery light. Now, the battery light is this one here, and it's got two wires coming out of it. One's yellow and black, and one is blue, and they basically go originally into this multi-plug and then at the back of that multi-plug and continue on along the loom. I basically decided to just bypass that multi-plug because it seemed like the female pin for one of those wires wasn't in the multi-plug enough. So you can imagine that when you push the two halves of the multi-plug together, it could be potentially pushing that female pin away rather than interlocking properly with the male pin. So the day after the last video, I decided to bypass that multi-plug, and I've done it in stages. You can see that the black and yellow wire has a join here, and then it splits off into multiple wires. One of them goes to the voltmeter there, and the other ones go to the backlights for the clocks. And it did seem that when I was wiggling this joint, the battery light was coming on and off. So the first thing I did was disconnect this joint and, you know, strip the wires and twist them together and put tape around it, and that's how it is now. But the intermittent fault didn't go away, so then I set about taking that wire out of the multi-plug, and that's it there where I've cut it. And then I cut the loom the other side of the multi-plug, which is down here. I think what I'll do is I'll disconnect this multi-plug so I've got more slack. So that's the original black and yellow wire there, and I just put this black wire in between and yeah, just bypassed the multi-plug for that black and yellow wire basically. But the issue was still there, so then I set about doing the same thing with the blue wire. So basically the battery light now bypasses that multi-plug completely. And there's the joint for the blue wire. Put this black wire in between just so I've got more length, and then that connects up to the other side of the multi-plug, the blue wire. But those joints are just twisted together because I didn't have my soldering iron with me. So what I'm going to do now is solder those joints this end, and then on the other end I'm going to attach my own 2-pin multi-plug thing. See what I'll do first, disconnect the battery. Thought I'd tape the clocks to the A-pillar here because I don't want to put strain on that oil pipe, which is for the oil pressure gauge. Right, let's take the battery light out of the clocks, give us even more slack. Just need to remove my tape. Disconnected the other end of this wire now, just to make it easier. Yeah, you can see better now what I was on about earlier, where this black and yellow wire
You know, it has loads of other wires twisted together with it for the backlights and for the battery gauge. And they were sort of crimped together with this metal sleeve thing. But yeah, I'll just remove that and twist them together. Anyway, that was a mission undoing the temporary bodge, so let's get the soldering iron out and do a permanent bodge. Alright, so that end of my bodge is now done, and look at the state of it. But at least it's soldered. Now, on the other end of these wires, I'm going to put one of these 2-pin multi-plugs. So half of the multi-plug obviously goes on them wires, and then the other half of the multi-plug needs to attach to these wires from the original loom. You've got the blue one there and the black and yellow one there. So I'll just crimp the 2 halves of the multi-plug onto those wires. Oh, these ones are fiddly, so they don't have much slack on the wires. If you're wondering why I've put heat shrink on there, it's because too much of the wires were stripped. I didn't want to cut them and make them any shorter. Yeah, I've done the same on these. So now I just need to push these into the back of this multi-plugs. Like that, and like that. Alright, so this is the blue one. Sweet. So now I'll just plug everything in and put the dash back in. That's it. Plug the new one in. Like that. It's snowing again. Hook the battery back up. Now we've got the moment of truth. The battery light is on. Hopefully my dodgy wiring job will last. Alright, so another little thing that happened when I took the car to my parents the other day is when I went to pull the handbrake up, it came all the way up and I lost all tension, and basically what happened was the handbrake cable had come off of the rear brake mechanism. So the cable, which I've just tied to the axle just so that it wasn't flapping about, is supposed to attach to here. There's basically a hole in this, there's actually 2. And yeah, there should be a little pin in there with an R-clip to stop it coming out. I don't have any of those clips, and I'm not sure if this actually had a clip in it or whether it was just bolted or maybe cable tied. I don't know. I have ordered some of the proper clips, but for now, I'm just gonna chuck a nut and bolt in it. I'm hoping I can do it without jacking out and taking the wheel off. I mean, it looks like I will be able to. So I'll just cut these cable ties, and then I should be able to just hook this back up. As I say, I'll just put this bolt and put a nut on the end of it. Stupid GoPro battery keeps turning off and I've got 40% left. Really rubbish in the cold. That'll do. Now, while I was under here at my parents the other day, strapping the cable to the axle, I found something that I'm not very happy about. Check out this damage to the boot floor. Now, I don't remember running over anything that made a big bang, but the exhaust does bang, so maybe that's why I didn't notice it. But yeah, really creased up under here. I'll obviously run over something. Luckily, it's only barely visible from inside the boot. Yeah, it's just where that bracket is for the fuel tank. Now, I haven't tried to bash it down or anything yet. I think if I'm going to do it successfully without cracking the paint, I'm going to need to heat up this area of the boot floor. If I do manage to push that down without the paint cracking, it will be virtually unnoticeable from in here. But yeah, not good at all, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I'm way past assuming that this car is going to stay absolutely mint. It's going to get used. Things are going to happen. Anyway, right now I need to get myself to work, and I think I'm going to take Esther to work with me, and then I'll come back around here on my break to swap back. And when I do that, I've got a couple of little things to look at on Maud. weather's taken a turn for the worse again. Anyway, got a couple of things I want to do before I go back to work. Pop Maud's bonnet. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is have a quick look at Maud's spark plugs. She seems to be popping and banging a bit more than usual, so maybe one of the spark plugs is cracked, like I found in Esther recently. When you're banging the cars off the rev limiter all the time, it does tend to crack the spark plugs, but Maud's exhaust is hanging, so maybe the pops are coming from a leak in the exhaust. Now, before I do crack on with removing the plugs, let's talk about this mess. Now, ever since I fitted this radiator, there has been a little bit of coolant coming out and spraying against this cam cover. I've actually replaced the rad cap that was on here. The one that was on here was like a stant cap with a release thing to release the pressure. This is actually Esther's radiator cap, and I just wanted to see if the radiator cap being worn was what was causing the issue. Now, the little rubber seal on the stant cap, I'll just take this off and show you what I mean. So yeah, the little rubber seal in there on the stant cap. Oh, this one hasn't got one. So this has got a rubber seal here, but the stant cap has got a rubber seal here, and it was a little bit worse for wear. Not completely worn, it wasn't cracked or anything, but because the neck is a bit twisted, I thought maybe, you know, the slightly worn seal could be causing my issues. Anyway, I put this rad cap on, and I was going to basically just see how much it loses over the next few days. And then I realised that when I was doing this up, the overflow pipe that was on there is a bit too thick. You know, it's not a proper overflow pipe. It was pushing up against this part of the cap when I was trying to tighten it. So I thought, well, that's not going to help the cap seal. So I undone the Jubilee clip, tried to pull the overflow pipe off, and if you look there, the actual tube that the overflow pipe slides onto is actually broken off of the radiator. So what I intend to do is see if I can find some tube the same size as that hole that's now in the radiator and press it in and put a load of Aaaand around it. That should be a temporary fix. Or maybe I could get some sort of pipe fitting with a thread on it and then poke that through and put a nut on this side. Obviously I'll have to make sure that the nut isn't interfering with this though. But yeah, that's to be continued. And now, obviously, there's even more coolant getting sprayed everywhere because there's no pipe to take the excess pressure down there. But yeah, let's have a look at these plugs. Oh dear. Well, that's not good. Look at all that oil. A bit worrying that there was 2 Allen key bolts for that plastic cover in here. I must have assumed that I dropped them on the floor last time, and they were in fact sitting on the rocker cover. So the rocker cover gasket is obviously leaking oil into where the spark plugs are. I've had the issue before where it's the back of the rocker cover leaking oil into there, and I think in the past I've done the sequence wrong. I used to start in the middle and then sort of go round like that. And I think one of you guys in the comments of a previous video said that I shouldn't be doing it in that order. And the way I did Esther's last time is I went outer to inner in a diagonal sequence. So yeah, I think I'm just going to crack all the bolts off and then do them up in that sequence. So I've really got to get back to work in a minute. I ain't got time to be pulling the rocker cover off and sorting it out properly. Just double check I've got no debris or anything. Can't really see on the back too because there's a puddle of oil. Well, the good news is none of them appear to be cracked. These two are obviously covered in oil. I will give them a better clean before I put them back in. First, let's redo this rocker cover. Just crack them all off. Doesn't matter what order I do them in when I'm doing them, I don't suppose. Spray a load of brake cleaner in there just to get all that oil. Just let it fall into the cylinder, it'll burn off. This ain't the right nozzle for this. I want to drop that in there. Right, so do the outer ones first. Nip them up and then I'll go back round again. I'm not using a torque wrench this time either. I mean, these are supposed to be ridiculously low torque, but let's try and do it by feel. Give them all another little nip now. As we seem to be getting the problem at the back, I'll give them another little bit. Let's get the plugs back in. I think we'll leave the plastic cover off for now so I can monitor things easier. Alright, so one more job I want to do before I go to work. I'm already really late. And that is to replace the seal that goes underneath the fuse box. You'll remember in a recent video I took this off and cleaned it up. And I did try and put a blob of solder on this contact here. And this contact is a bit loose. I am going to put a blob of Aaaand on there. I haven't got any Aaaand in my garage. But yeah, when I was soldering that blob onto the fuse box, the seal got a bit melted. So yeah, I've got this seal off of eBay, but it's from a company that I've used loads of times. This is simple. Just got to undo these 2 screws. Actually comes with new screws and spacers, which is handy. We'll have to unwire it, but it's just a case of peeling the old seal off. Probably should give it a wipe. That blob of solder I put on is doing absolutely nothing now. Anyway, it's actually got a sticky back, so I'm just going to peel this off. Sweet. Screw in the brand new screws and spacers. And that is job done. I'll just make sure that the fuse box wiring is fully pressed on. Yeah, that's sweet. Check she runs. And now I really must get to work. More definitely felt like she was down on power, but it was sort of after I'd been driving Esther, so I just kind of assumed that I'd got used to the power that Esther's got, because she's much quicker. You know, another 25 horsepower than this car and way lighter. But you know, I wanted to have a look at the spark plugs, because as I say, it did seem to be popping and banging a bit more than usual, and it definitely seemed to be a little bit less at the bottom end. I have noticed as well, sometimes when you pull away hard from a standstill, like if you're just coming onto a motorway, you get to like the top of 4th and it seems like, you know, it's misfiring. I kind of thought that maybe it's the fuel pump, because I think this fuel pump came off of a 600cc motorbike, and it was obviously an old tatty one that my mate had in his shed. But yeah, maybe that was because of the oil around the spark plugs as well, I don't know. Hopefully I'll get a chance to give her a bit of a blip on the way to work and see if she feels any better. But yeah, I will need to take the rocker cover off and give it a proper clean and, you know, refit it again at some point. But for now, I'll just keep popping the HT leads off and checking to see if oil is still getting into where the spark plugs are. Now today, I am planning, while I'm driving around doing my day job, to pop into Halfords and grab some Aaaand, and I'm going to see if I can go into B&Q or Wickes and get some sort of thin tubing, so I can use the tubing and the Aaaand to hopefully bodge towards radiator, and I'm going to put a blob of the Aaaand on that contact on the fuse box. I could see today that my blob of solder wasn't attached to the bottom part of that contact, so it's not doing anything now. One thing I forgot to mention so far in this video, a lot of you were saying that it looked like Esther had a nail in her driver's side front tyre. Well, I had a look today and thankfully it was just a stone. But yeah, really appreciate you guys always pointing out stuff that I might not have seen. Popping and banging like mad. Smoke out the back seems to have cleared up now though. Coming up to a bridge, wind the window down. It's the law. Oh, red light. Launch control. Alright, so that's me back at work, and I've got loads of catching up to do, but it's all good. Today is Friday, so I'm hoping to have a full day around the garage tomorrow. We'll have to see what the weather's like before I decide what I'm actually going to be cracking on with. I've ordered loads of little bits off of eBay that I need to do certain jobs as well, so we'll see what manages to get through the post before I leave for the garage tomorrow. But yeah, as you've seen today, I've at least got a couple of jobs to do on Maud. So I'm going to end this video here. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media. I'll also leave a link to my website down there for those of you that want to check out my regular blog posts or grab yourself some official Marcus Hayes merchandise. I'll also leave a link to my newly launched Patreon, and I'll leave my email address in the description for those of you that need to get in touch with me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.